All right, the next part of our training will be focused on the retention calendar. In order to access the retention calendar, we click on the purple calendar icon on the left side of the screen. I would strongly recommend making sure the screen is expanded so that we have more real estate, screen real estate for the retention calendar. And then we'll do a simple retention calendar walkthrough and training here. So in order to navigate through the retention calendar, first you have a section here where you can look at both the calendar and general statistics. We'll walk through each one of those. The calendar lets you choose any day of the week, month, or year. You can click on the day of the week just by simply selecting a particular day. You can also click through previous months or even years by clicking through the calendar. So for today, particularly, we'll walk through the retention calendar using today's statistics. But also, of course, on the right, we also have some scoreboards showing how we did yesterday, how we did this week, or how we are doing this week and how we are doing this month. And we'll talk about what's considered good, what's considered average. We'll get to that in a later part of this training. So as an example, if we scroll down here, we're clicked on August 2017, Friday the 4th. As we scroll down here, what we're going to see are all of the appointments for a given day in chronological order. Right, so on the left, you'll see the time of the appointment, the client coming in, the pet who the client will be bringing, whether or not this client has already confirmed their appointment via email or text message, or even within their practice management system. The confirm section will only show confirmations if you're using ALLYDVM's automated email text messaging platform. And then probably the most important component of the retention calendar is the alerts section. A list of alerts will show up on the right side of this row here if there are items that need to be addressed. And for this particular training, you can also see a legend of all the different alerts that exist in the report as well. If there is a paw print that shows up on the retention calendar, it means that outside of the pet that the client is bringing in, so for example, in this case, Rachel is bringing in Toots. It just so happens that there is another pet in Rachel's household named Bruiser, who is alive and active, does not have a future appointment, and yet is due for certain services. And we'll talk more about these icons a little bit later. So the paw print lets us know that there are other pets that are due in the household. The bell will alert us that there is a pet in the household, and it could even be the pet coming in. But from a hospital standpoint, we don't have vaccine records for that pet. By definition, the bell shows up if there are one or fewer reminders for that pet in your practice management system. It doesn't matter if that reminder is current, if the reminders are current, past due, one or fewer of any type of reminder, and the bell will show up. The envelope shows up if we either have no email address for a client, or if the email on file for that client is a bad email address. Our system is smart enough to tell if an email on file is a deliverable email address. The cell phone icon lets us know if we are missing a cell phone number for that client. And the home lets us know if the mailing address on file for that client is valid. And this particular icon will only show up if you are using ALLYDVM's postcard function or part of our communication system. And just for the sake of explanation, this bottom icon here on the report just shows us our totals. So in other words, of the 43 items that needed to be addressed, 8 were successfully added or updated. And as a reminder, our system updates every single hour with your practice management system. And so a little bit below, you will see this section of the retention calendar that will show us kind of a real, more or less a real time. It updates every hour of what has happened so far. So truly today, at this point in time, this hospital has not successfully addressed any one item on the retention calendar, as you can see. And scrolling down, the way that you'll know that an icon has been successfully addressed and recognized by ALLYDVM is the icon will turn blue. If I click on a previous day, for example, we can see that 2 of the 29 paw prints ended up scheduling appointments. Again, 5 bells or 5 pets received reminders. 1 email address was added. If I scroll down, you will see blue icons which represent that items were addressed. In the case that you see a blue square around an icon, that just simply means that there were opportunities for multiple pets and that at least one of them were addressed, but yet not all of them were addressed. In this case, Miss Hiss was able to update their reminders before leaving the practice. You will notice that there are other colors on the retention calendar. Icons are marked green, icons are marked red. We'll talk about that later in the training. But that's a quick way to where you can know that the system did address and recognize that an alert was successfully addressed by it turning blue. So again, coming back to today, the way that this retention calendar works, you have the times of the appointments on the left, the client, the patient. The only reason why you have 12 a.m. appointments, if you see that on your calendar, that's just because it's a boarding appointment that doesn't have a set time in your practice management system. So the system automatically defaults it to a 12 a.m. time frame. The magnifying glass is used as a cheat sheet to tell us specifics about the alerts on the right side. We'll get into that later. And then the three icons to the left of the client name are for just different features. The envelope will allow us to send a quick email if desired to Kiki. The cell phone icon lets us send a quick message, cell phone or text message to Kiki. And then the little conversation bubble is what actually is used to manually change the color of the icons for internal communication purposes. And we'll get to that later as well. So again, the purpose of this calendar, see the retention calendar as having another employee at your practice that before every single appointment goes through and scans through the records, scans through all of the client information, scans through all the pets in the household, and looks for opportunities that need to be addressed when this client is coming in for their appointment. The best time to address items, of course, is when the client is in front of us or when we're already going to be speaking with the client. It just makes it that much easier for the front staff. The front staff is constantly busy, constantly bombarded by people checking in, checking out, phone calls, minor crises, you name it. This is designed to take a 3-minute task and turn it into a 10 or 15-second task. So the way that this works is if today were Friday, August 4th, we would keep this calendar open on our computer screen and just minimize it when we're not using it. Alternatively, some practices have multiple monitors so that the retention calendar always stays up, or some practices also print this out ahead of time. But this becomes useful because as we're going through the day and we see that a particular client, Rachel, is coming in with toots, we can quickly see that Bruiser is also due for certain products or services and does not have a future appointment. What is Bruiser due for? Instead of going into your practice management system, and this is important, we can click the magnifying glass, scroll down slightly, and see that Bruiser happens to be due for a Bordetella, a wellness exam, a dental, a distemper 3 years, and a rabies. So that is the benefit of using that magnifying glass as just a quick cheat sheet. We can see details of the appointment. If you want to see even more specifics, click on the magnifying glass, and we can see even more. Again, going back, we come back to this retention calendar here, and we can keep moving. Scrolling down the list a bit more, we see Brandy's coming in. This client has an appointment scheduled, but there's no pet name in the practice management system, which is why there's no pet here. If you ever don't see a pet name, just there's nothing that was added to the appointment. But in this case, we can see that Charlie is due for an appointment. And then also there's a bell. If we highlight over the bell, we know that Gino and Miko are pets in this particular household that do not have that or any reminder set up, or by definition, one or fewer. Of course, every pet should probably have an exam, a couple vaccine reminders, potentially a heartworm test, fecal. These pets have one or fewer, therefore we should address this with Brandy when she comes in. Again, that's what the bell represents. Scrolling down more, we can see that Pam at 12:10, we are missing an email address, or the email address on file is a bad one. Again, if I click the magnifying glass, I can see details to this appointment. In the email field, we can see it says verify. So clearly there was no correct email address. We should try to address this when the client comes in for their appointment. quickly to get away from this appointment card. If I click away in the dark area, I'm back to where I was, and I can keep going and look for other icons or alerts as the day goes on. Of course, if there are no alerts next to a client, everything is up to date, we're set. We don't need to spend or waste time pulling up the practice management system, looking for correct contact info, looking through other pets in the household. Even if that were just a 2-minute chore, we see of these 10 or so appointments listed in front of us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 have nothing that needs to be updated. We may have just saved 15 or so minutes, 16 minutes, by having the retention calendar open and not having to go into our system to look for those items. So again, this retention calendar is a cheat sheet. It addresses the low-hanging fruit that exists for every client coming in with an appointment for that given day. And this is such a big deal because on average, if we can just schedule one additional appointment a day by asking about other pets in the household that's also due, we can potentially generate $40,000 to $50,000 of additional revenue each year for the practice. This means a lot for the hospital. It is easier to retain a client than it is to obtain a client. It is easier to reactivate or retain a pet than it is to try to get new ones in the practice. And so that's why this should be used. And again, it's designed to make time-consuming tasks easier for the front staff. So let's dive into this in a bit more detail and how we actually get these alerts to disappear and the right process to be used. As again, a reminder, our system updates at ALLYDVM, the retention calendar updates with your database every hour. And so it should be relatively up to date. And again, Rachel's coming in at 7:50 with Toots. The right way to address this, again, is the moment we see Rachel coming in, we see that there's another pet due, click the magnifying glass. And then as Rachel's checking in, hey Rachel, it's great to see ya. How's Toots doing? And once Toots is completely taken care of and addressed, we may say, hey Rachel, we noticed that Bruiser is also due for his annual vaccines, including a 3-year distemper and rabies and a wellness exam. Would you like to schedule that and put that on the books before you leave? If the answer is yes, then we open up our practice management system and schedule that appointment for Bruiser. You don't have to do anything in the retention calendar. This is just an alerting system. Once that appointment is added to your practice management system's calendar, the paw print will turn blue within an hour. Once we next sync, our system will recognize that an appointment was scheduled for Bruiser, and that alert will turn blue. Right? And so that's how we get rid of the paw prints. Alternatively as well, if there is some reason why we should not be asking about Bruiser, or if Bruiser happens to be Rachel's daughter's dog, and yes, we understand Bruiser's due, but please don't ask me again, and you don't want this to affect your statistics on the retention calendar, you can click on Bruiser and then select the little box that says alerts disabled for that pet. Once that's done, the next day that alert actually will disappear off the calendar. And it'll also prevent that pet from harming your retention calendar statistics. We still can send reminders to that particular pet or that pet owner for this pet. But in this particular case, it will no longer show up on the retention calendar. You won't bug Rachel about that pet, and it won't hurt your statistics. The same when it comes to, we notice that there are other pets in the household where we are missing reminders. We strongly suggest asking the pet owner about those pets and see where those reminders are. One of the best things to do in this case is just to simply ask Brandy, hey Brandy, when was the last time that Gino and Miko were vaccinated? If she tells us, oh, it was 6 months ago at this hospital or that hospital, then great. See if you can have those records transferred over. If it's been more than a year, not a problem. Don't even worry about the bell. Just see if you can schedule an appointment for Gino or Miko. That's our kind of best practice recommendation there. As well, what we find that a lot of bells show up for a couple different reasons. Either there's just one or fewer reminders for a pet, but why are there one or fewer reminders? Maybe Brandy told us that she would send records and she never did. Or what we see frequently is that it's possible that a member of your practice actually called Gino and Miko's previous vet, had the records sent over to your practice, you took the time to scan those records into your system, But because it was a busy day, we never took the time to add the reminders for those particular pets. And so in order to get rid of the bell, you have two options, maybe three options. Either we mark those pets as inactive if they happen to be inactive, or we can add at least 2 reminders to those pets, and the reminder section will cause the bell to turn blue. Alternatively, if we understand that a pet doesn't have reminders and they shouldn't, maybe it's a vaccine reactive dog, the dog's too old for certain services, and so the veterinarians have recommended that that maybe they don't need reminders, that we shouldn't be reminding a particular pet. We can click on that pet, again, mark all alerts disabled just for that pet, and then that next day that alert will completely disappear. So again, everything is done in your practice management system, and then our system updates for the next day. When our system updates, actually every hour we will catch that. So again, that's how we get rid of the bells. Again, with paw prints and bells, if we elect to disable all alerts for that pet, it will only affect that pet. It won't affect the client. We will still be sending reminders. With email addresses, and it's the same with emails or cell phones. In this case, we're missing an email. What we need to do is add a correct email address into that client record in your practice management system. If done within an hour, that alert will turn blue. The same with an email or cell phone. I know we discussed this in the client training section of our ALLYDVM trainings, but if you want to mark an email or cell phone disabled in ALLYDVM, you can just click on the client. This will automatically take us to the client section. We can scroll down just a little bit, and under preferences, we can select that that an email was declined or needs to be removed off the retention calendar, and or a cell phone. Alternatively, we strongly recommend on the retention calendar, if you have a breeder, a nonprofit, rescue, a shelter, a humane society, just click all retention calendar alerts disabled, and then go back, make sure after you click all retention calendar alerts disabled that you do select the save button on the top, following which go back to the retention calendar, and then alerts will disappear for that particular client, or that particular alert, such as the email or cell phone, will disappear eventually once our system syncs every hour. Again, we recommend doing that for rescues or shelters, for example, because you may have some rescues with 100 or 200 pets on file, and it doesn't make any sense to go through all 200 of those pets with that rescue. And in addition, it will greatly harm your averages on the retention calendar. And so again, all these alerts are addressed in your practice management system and allow our system to update with your practice management system. That's the best way to go about it. So again, that's an overview of the different icons, alerts. If you did see a cell phone number, add an appropriate cell phone number in your practice management system. That needs to be in a field marked as cell, cellular, or mobile. If you have any questions about this, or you've noticed that you maybe use your practice management system different than other hospitals, don't hesitate to contact info or support at ALLYDVM.com, and we can help you and walk through these issues. Going through the retention calendar, as you update these icons, you should see that these statistics for the day update, right? And in addition, just to walk through a couple other components of the retention calendar, one important item is these 3 little icons on the left side of the client name. If I wanted to send Rachel a quick email, I could click the cell phone icon or the email icon, and this will take us right to the direct message page, and I can send a quick note or choose a preset message. The same thing with cell phone. If I wanted to send a quick text message, I can click this icon. It'll automatically plug in Rachel's name and number, and I can either choose a preset message or type in a custom message. And then the conversation bubble, the way that this works is I can click this icon in order to make notes about the alerts on the right side of the screen. This is used for inter-hospital communications. So if I ask Rachel, maybe I do a call ahead reminder to see if Rachel will confirm her appointment the day before. I call Rachel and say, hey Rachel, this is Jason from ABC Animal Hospital calling to remind you about Toots' appointment tomorrow morning at 7:50. Once everything has been addressed, I may then say, hey Rachel, while I have you on the phone, I noticed that Bruiser is also due for an appointment for their annual vaccines. Again, how do I know that? Click the magnifying glass. They're due for everything here, right? Click away. So Rachel, would you like to schedule an appointment for Bruiser while I have you on the phone? If she says yes, great, good work. Add that appointment to your practice management system. This alert will turn blue within an hour. If Rachel says, no, actually, this is my child's pet, please don't ask me ever again, click the pet, disable alerts. Or if Toots, it just so happens that Rachel, heaven forbid, is coming in to euthanize Toots, then in a particular case like this, you know it's just not appropriate to be asking most likely about Bruiser. I can make a comment here and say, you know what, for this other pet due, let's just call this rejected and say, please don't ask, coming in for a EUTH for Toots. I could even give a quick initial and then click save. This alert will then turn red, letting the front staff know the next day that this is something that should not be discussed during this appointment. Just skip this. Alternatively, if on the phone, Rachel said, you know what? Yes, I would like to schedule an appointment for Bruiser, but I'm on the road right now. I can't look at my calendar. Can you please bring this up during our appointment tomorrow? Say, absolutely. We'll discuss this at check-in tomorrow, Rachel. We'll see you tomorrow. What I would want to do is click the conversation bubble. I'd probably reset it, right? Because this is no longer rejected, so I'm going to quickly reset that. All right, I'm going to click, right? They accepted. Will schedule an appointment for Bruiser tomorrow at check-in. Don't forget, JW, click save. Now that icon is green. This alerts the front staff tomorrow while they have that retention calendar up and Rachel's checking in. I can see, oh, interesting. Bruiser has is marked as green on the retention calendar. Let me go back to this conversation bubble and see why, right? You can see that there's a note here. We'll schedule an appointment for Bruiser tomorrow at check-in. Don't forget. I'm actually going to reset this right now because this is just for training purposes. And then what I know to do is when Rachel checks in, hey, Rachel, it's great to see you. We noticed that you did want to schedule an appointment for Bruiser. Let's get that out of the way. You scheduled the appointment. Within an hour, this icon turns blue and we're set. So again, the conversation bubble just allows us to make notes and to communicate internally at the practice. Maybe we left a message. We can say, yep, discussed, left a message about Bruiser. Please follow up at check-in. Right, click save. That icon will turn yellow. Again, I'm going to reset this so we're not confusing our demo account here, right? But that's the purpose of this conversation bubble. So again, we want to send a quick text message to Rachel, let her know that Toots' surgery went well, that Toots is awake and doing great, pickups at 5. Send a quick text message. The same thing with an email, maybe to give them an update about something or to ask to leave a review. You can send any type of custom message you want or make updates to change the color of these icons. It is important to note with this conversation bubble, when you change the color of the alert, that does not, even if you mark it accepted, that will not give you credit for that icon. Our system has to see that an appointment was scheduled. So again, throughout the day, you should be using this calendar, making updates, seeing what items need to be updated, adding them to your practice management system. All statistics, the statistics in the scorecard on the top will update once a day. And this will show us again yesterday what percentage of the paw prints or bells or emails were addressed, or the aggregate numbers on the right? 1 of 2 emails were addressed, or the total on the bottom. For the week, this will just compare this week compared to last week. So this hospital is doing great, right? This week so far, they're getting 27% of all the alerts. And this is up 9% compared to last month. So last month they were averaging 18%, last week, this is the week section, I apologize. Last week they were averaging 18%. This week they're averaging 27%. They're up 9 points. And so this is just to quickly see, are we doing better or worse compared to last week? And then the same with this month. This month, right, it looks like greens across the board. This is great. Last month, we clearly averaged a total of 18%. This month, we're at 22%. This is considered excellent. And let's take a quick moment to discuss what's good and what we see as we work with hundreds and hundreds of practices throughout the nation. First, when it comes to totals, 19%, is that considered good, bad? Not using the retention calendar, the average practice only collects or corrects 2 to 3% of these items. And so 19%, is that good? Yes, that's actually quite good. If this practice were only averaging 2%, they're almost up 10 times what they used to be doing now that they're on the retention calendar. What's good? Anything in the high teens or low 20s is considered good. Anything in the high 20s or low 30s, you're going to be in the top 90th percentile of all animal hospitals in the nation. If you're able to get in the high 30s or anywhere in the 40s, you're most likely a top 10 or 20 practice in the nation. Okay? From a pop print standpoint, anything above 10% is great. Bells, anything above 25 or 30% is considered great. For emails and cell phones, we really like to see those above 75%. Because again, remember, even if a client declines an email address, you can click on the client, mark the email as disabled under the retention calendar section, and that icon will disappear and not hurt your stats. So we say 75% of those should be addressed. Right? And so again, that's the scorecard there. In addition to the scorecard, again, we've talked about navigation. If desired, we could just simply hide that section to give us even more real estate. But scrolling down, we talked through the retention calendar, how you can print it, how you can see alerts that update throughout the day every hour. You can have the appointment card, which is your cheat sheet to let us know what specifically the pets are due for. You click on that, you can see additional items, click away to have it removed. You can see the time of the appointment. We can make little notes about the icons by clicking the conversation bubble, send a quick text message, send a quick email potentially to Rachel if desired. Again, for additional training on these two icons, go to our YouTube channel and watch our direct message training. We can click on the client to update information about the client if desired. That will take us directly to that client in the client section of our system. You can click on that particular pet if you want to disable alerts or see additional information about that pet. We can see if this client already confirmed. Again, this is an appointment for August 4th. We see that at this particular time on August 7th, they did confirm via email. And on the right, we'll have a list of all of our alerts. The only thing to potentially mention that is of worth is on the left side of the screen, under reports, there are both retention calendar stats reports if you want to see more in-depth reports as to how you're doing now compared to in the past. That's a great tool to look at statistics specific to the retention calendar. For additional training here, either contact support at ALLYDVM.com or on YouTube, watch our retention calendar stats training. The other report that's applicable to the retention calendar is the generated revenue. For every appointment that we schedule for every paw print, our system will follow that appointment and see how much revenue was generated from that appointment. So the generated revenue report can let us see, okay, so on the 8th, we did have a client come in and spend $18 on an appointment that was generated through the retention calendar. Alternatively, in the last 30 days, through the retention calendar, we scheduled 10 additional appointments. We generated an extra $1,000, $1,035.42. And then below, you can see the details of which pets they were and how much was spent per client. You can run custom reports over certain date ranges, but this just lets us see the effect that the retention calendar is having at our practice. So again, if you have any additional questions on the retention calendar, you can, of course, watch this training as often as you'd like. Again, there are other trainings on our YouTube channel, and you can always contact support at ALLYDVM.com or info@ALLYDVM.com if you'd like additional trainings.